Hello, welcome back. Chat, we are here joined by the wonderful Juwen Zhang, and we are going to talk about a lot of different stuff tonight. But first, I want to ask you, how was Dynasty Warriors Origins? What did you think, like, big picture?
Well, it's a little pleasantly surprising to me because for me, games are games,
Yeah,
But now I realize this is very historically
yeah,
loyal to the book, so that's a little surprise. So,
yeah.
and that helps people to revisit history rather than go to a fantasy world, completely fictional. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be curious to look at the past games, past iterations of Dynasty Warriors, and see how bad they were at historical representation compared to this one, which is like the newest one. I'm curious. Yeah,
I I will say the voice
Right.
acting has gotten so much better.
that's
Yeah.
good.
I learned from you that this is a new episode, and I had heard this has a like a 10-20 year history. I mean, the
Yep,
game
Yeah,
had
like
different development.
yeah.
20-year
But
history at least.
but
Yeah.
it's interesting. It started or originated in Japan, not in China,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we see the cartoonic hairstyle, the
Yeah,
costumes. So very much
yeah.
in line with the Japanese anime style.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And our
interesting.
character having like big purple eyes. you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. There's lots
Yeah,
of yeah.
yeah, that's interesting.
Decision,
But
yeah.
I noticed one thing. The characters are running. Carrying the spear or
Yes.
sword, exactly the same as the black myth Wukong. You
Oh,
know,
Mm,
really? I see. Okay.
yeah.
it's almost the same posture, running. Yeah,
That's
very
awesome. Yeah, that
okay.
I wonder if that's like uh informed by physics of carrying, like what it would really be like to carry a sword like that. I know
Nah.
I've seen no, you don't think so? I've seen people do like their criticism of like pulling katanas out, like they can from
Hmm.
behind you, they can only be a certain length for that to physically work based on what kind of thing they're sitting in, like what kind of sheath they have. I've seen people
Hmm.
kind of see, test the accuracy of that in games and television or whatever. But anyway,
Hmm.
well,
Okay.
before we jump into your formal questions and to set the stage for the interview, we have a thing to do. Dom, I turn it over to you.
Hi. Okay. So sorry, I'm trying to see if I can update the stream info on my
Oh,
phone.
I can do it.
Anyway,
I'll do it. Sorry.
I figured it out. I got it.
Okay.
This is for folks watching it at home. This is the first week uh modding for Twitch on Android happened. So I
Yeah.
am so excited. Anyway, more behind the scenes stuff. We're about to ask Joanne some questions, but of course it's not just me and Daisy doing all the work. We are, of course, helped writing these questions and researching all this information by our wonderful and illustrious and mysterious Folkwise interview sleuths. And I will say we had a big sleuthing session this week. We had a lot of people working on these questions. So, Joanne, that is to say, if you like a question, if you hear something that surprises you or makes you go, oh, I'm glad you caught that, don't thank Daisy, don't thank me, thank the sleuths as a team. And with that, I will throw it back over to Daisy.
All right. Are you ready for your first question?
Yes.
What are some of the challenges of translating folk narratives?
Uh, all right. I think there might be two parts of that. One is a technical part. One is beyond technical. That's more of a ideological or personal consideration. Technical part, perhaps, uh, it's more challenging when you translate languages from very different families. For example, European languages versus, say, Chinese, rather than French and Spanish.
Sure.
um, So that's easier in a sense that you find equivalency to translate. And then occasionally you have terms that you can't find the equivalent in terms of vocabulary or semantic sense. Then you can put the notes, right, technically. So that's something I personally think is not a huge challenge. But the huge challenge is beyond technical part. That is what you decide to translate, and translate for whom, and to what extent you consciously or unconsciously input your own judgment or values, right? Or in another sense, sometimes translators may or may not know well about the author, original author. So if you only translate text without knowing enough about the author's original, for example, religious interest, political interest, or other ideas, then it would be hard to get the meaning crossed or well received by the target audience. And then in my recent years' work, I pay more attention to the what I call the ideological agenda in translation, because translators sometimes, in my the case I studied, translators may maybe unconsciously reinforce stereotypes. Whatever stereotypes, racial or cultural or not. So that's a big challenge in translation.
How do you notice unconscious translations? Like, are there things that you have, maybe in your own work, but because it's that could be easier to see, I think, through somebody else's translation, because it's not you're not the one with the unconscious being put into it. But how do you kind of think through that as a translator?
Well, that's a very big and important question. Usually, so every one of us live in this particular time of history. So we are all educated in more or less the same system. So we may not be aware of that. For example, Dr. Seuss, he was very anti-racist, yet because of his time living, before 1950s, 60s, he somehow, used those terms, used the images, right? So I think it's hard for everyone to be way advanced in advance of history to find the problems. So it's common to make mistakes, but I think as I try to articulate my idea, that is historically or traditionally, we train translators through language first, get the language skills, and learn some culture experience, then translate, without first emphasizing that, look, we are dealing with a translation between this and that cultures. And among these cultures, there are not only linguistic issue, culture issue, but there might be religious issue, there might be racist issue, there might be many other issues. So are we aware of those, right? For example, if we know this text or this author has particular historical background, then we know how to deal with some of the ways of saying, or even by saying, okay, this is the original text. Here, I need to put a note so that the audience will be aware of what they are reading about, rather than being, just bumped with, oh, this is an important piece of work, and so on and so forth. So that's why translation is, I think, is not just a linguistic skill thing. Many people think, yeah, if you have a good bilingual skills or trilingual skill, then you're a great translator. No, I think we should now emphasize, or to let people be aware of that. First, you should understand to what system you have been immersed in,
Yeah.
you know, what
Yeah.
ideological agenda in your mind, and what is the ideological or religious agenda in the author's mind, then you can deal with it. So especially folklore, as we know, in the past few centuries, most of the stories that we know in English are from the colonized culture.
Yeah.
And those all, I would say almost all, start with the missionaries' translation. And even some terms, we still follow those. Now it's time to reflect on those. You know, for example, we talk about Chinese case, Chinese sense of heaven or sky is not in the Christian sense of heaven, right?
Right.
Or in the Buddhist hell and so on. So those things are seemingly a semantic issue, but in fact, it's more, you know, ideological or religious issue. And if readers, especially children, are not aware of those, are not told about differences, then they would just keep those, reinforce those stereotypes. So that's what I try to articulate for myself first, and then to
Yeah.
try to convince other translators.
I feel like I feel like I just have so many more questions now. Like, I'm thinking about language as a way to call in relation to how you see and understand the world. I feel like that layer is so not taught or talked about, and so I feel like you're pulling on an exact important issue, especially for folklorists who consider themselves often to be like cultural translators between different communities. It's beyond just the language that we use. It's so much deeper than that. It's about how the language shapes how we think. Yeah.
Well, oh, this is so important because we, even today, we are taught in folklore class uh, through text,
Yeah.
as if reading the
Yeah.
text, translated or not, that's folklore.
Yeah.
No, you know,
Yeah.
stories were told, you know, the
Yes.
listened,
Yeah.
the told, not written, read about.
Yeah.
So I think what you said is so crucial in understanding the use of language, which is for person-to-person, face-to-face communication ideas, not for text reading. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm like, this kind of relates to our next question, but in a different way. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask it.
Yeah. All right.
What is filmic folklore, and how is the medium of representing folklore become folklore?
Okay. Wow.
We can unpack this together.
Interesting. Well, in retrospect, this is just about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 years ago, when Sherry Sherman, you know, organized a special issue related to folklore and film, I began to go a little beyond the norm. That is folklore versus film. You know,
Yeah.
it's two entities. And I noticed those who study film, they talk about the artistic thing, you know, and then all the feature films is one category, documentary is one category, and then folklorists would emphasize, okay, we only use a documentary film, not feature films. So, and then I find there's a gap. That is, in the film, they create a folklore that exists only in the film, not necessarily in reality. Yet, that created a filmic folklore in film somehow has great impact to the reality, either to the practitioners of related traditions or to general viewers. For example, I look at some of the films popular, you know, 20, 30 years ago, Chinese film in the West, like a Yellow Earth and so on and so forth. So in those films, audience would say, "Oh, that's Chinese tradition," the weddings, funerals, and so on. And for Chinese, most Chinese, yeah, it's just look familiar. Yet, if you explore further, you will find the film is just like a literature fiction novel. The piece is an arm from a northwest and a leg from the southwest, and put together as a figure, as a person. And then in the film, they also bring custom here, for example, a dish there, a dress there, and so on, and create this figure. So that interests me to the extent that I realize even a lot of local people now adopt those to say, hey, this is our tradition, because they don't know exactly what their ancestors or early generation did. So they are told, this is our tradition, this is your tradition. So they began to rebuild their own tradition based on that so-called filmic folklore created through films. So I feel that's powerful. For example, the Lord of the Rings, the Harry Potter, all those things, they adopted customs here, language there, jokes here, there, and now has a great impact on everyday life to everyday people.
Yeah.
Somehow renovated some traditions, so that's how I define the filmic folklore.
That was a great explanation and like example. I guess I just was, as you're explaining that, thought of the movie Moana. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not, but the Disney film. I guess I'm thinking about it in a sort of pan-Polynesian sense, because Moana is sort of this sort of myth of a lot of different island cultures, and I'm curious about the impact of that movie now on how people see surfing, for example, or these other kinds of, I don't know. That's a movie that came to my mind that might fit if I spent time thinking about it. Another example.
Well, I think you're right. Even the new Snow White and the Mulan, 2-3 years ago, they all had that element. That is, they just piece different customs into one, and then to impose to the audience. Here's the tradition.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So this even came up in the game we were playing when Daisy used their bird eye skill, and the first thing I thought was, oh, like an elf, and then I'm like, like one of Tolkien's elves. Not like, but that is replaced like what an elf is like in folklore, just with one of like, you know what I mean?
Like the fantasy,
exactly.
Like written, yeah.
And they used the eye. And in Chinese folklore, the eye may not be as important as, for example, Jewish.
Sure.
The eye.
Yeah.
So, but somehow that is thrown in the game, although it is not in the original book or story. Mm-hmm. So then the audience, the player, will get the sense. Okay, that is Chinese tradition.
Yeah.
as the part of folklore.
And we could really get into the layers on this, but there's also a kind of folklore of how you play games and what you expect to have happen as a person who plays games regularly. So something like having a sight is not uncommon in games. Like, that's not unique to this game. That's something that's in lots of different games. And so I wonder, like,
well, and similar with movies too, because it's a visual medium. Yeah,
right. And so I wonder, like, now there's almost like I'm thinking about like the player's expectation, the folkloric expectation of how one plays a game or whatever, maybe is something there too. That layers on top of all of these other like entangled ideas about like race or history or whatever too at the same time. That's so interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, just quickly to a note to what you said is I think the new game Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah.
That it builds upon the well-known story, yet brings a new dimension of the story by telling the story about the future rather than about the past.
Right.
And then imposing a lot of traditional elements, whether it's the real scene or music or figures, or the philosophical or religious ideas. You know, it turned out interesting. In the game, they chose the real scenes, the mountains and so on. And so that region in China quickly became a popular tourist
Right.
site.
Ah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That happens. Yeah, and then
So that
yeah, they get like an influx of tourists and just people who are from the outside that are like all of a sudden blowing up like the land with the amount of people. I don't know. I'm just thinking about so many people like just flooding into the space unexpectedly, kind of, or without consideration for the people who live there.
right, and then that brings another layer of a face-to-face interaction. You know, the players play through screens, and now they are all on the same tour and then facing each other, talk about the games.
Yeah.
So that new dimension of a face-to-face interaction through games, not through playing, but through talking, sharing the physical sights, and then the story. That's I think that's something very intriguing. For example, I know that in Germany they create a tourist site along Brothers Grimm's tales. They say, "Oh, this tale happened here," and but that's so that's different from this playing games, because games is a new way of a person-to-person interaction beyond a face-to-face normal. Yet, as a result, the games brought people together to this site, and they became drinking partners or new friends. So that's interesting result. Yeah.
That's part of the reason we like this platform, Twitch, so much, because it's really good at capturing that conversation that happens about the game that you don't necessarily have to be playing together to get. You know, you can kind of be watching and talking about it like a movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or music, listening to music.
Yeah.
Cool. I have another question for you.
All right.
A little bit different than this topic. We're merging into another one. What skills did you develop as a folklorist that made you so good at teaching languages? We noticed you have teaching awards of many, and we just wanted to hear more about that.
Well, teaching. Okay. Well, it's the 40-year history.
I guess that helps.
You know,
yeah.
to be a language teacher might be a little different from teacher of history or chemistry or something else. Personality plays an important role, but I have to say that at the very beginning of my teaching career, I was by chance attending a workshop held by a professor from Dartmouth College, whose name is John Russius, who was promoting a particular method that emphasizes dramatization and visualization teaching materials. So that impressed me a lot, and I learned some techniques so that whenever I teach a dialogue or text, I would let either me or with the students or students alone together dramatize it and visualize. So as people say, bring the authentic materials or situational conversation. Well, how can we do situational conversation in classroom? We have to, try to dramatize it, visualize it.
We have to do improv.
Exactly. So with that method, I was able to motivate students to be alert in class. They can't have time to take 40 winks to drink, to eat.
Yeah.
They have to be along with the rhythms, keep speaking, repeating. And so eventually they get the pattern, the sound just repeating in their ear, and eventually they may be more, more effective in a way. I say every method is effective, but some might be more effective. So I think over years, those who studied with me, realize they can relax, not be afraid of making mistakes, and feel comfortable speaking, acting in class, so they learn better. So that's also my way of exercising every morning at 8 o'clock, jumping around rather than sitting or standing.
Yeah.
So I enjoy teaching language a lot. Yes.
Bright and early in the morning, you're ready to wake everyone up.
Yeah.
I love
Yes.
that, and make everybody participate in some kind of skit or scenario.
Yes, exactly.
That sounds fun.
Acting, yes. Mhm.
That sounds really fun.
Mhm.
I have another question for you, another big one, and then I have some funsy questions.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay. How can folklore promote human cultural diversity and deconstruct colonial and racist paradigms?
Well, that's exactly what I've been
It's so big.
thinking, trying to do
Yeah.
these few years. Uh, First of all, I think we should be aware of what the so-called the racist system is, because now everybody, or basically everybody, is saying, because the government began to say this only in the recent years, that, for example, in the United States, we have the racist, systematic racism.
Yeah.
What is that? How is that reflected in everyday life? Okay, in classroom, in neighborhood, and or in ourselves, right? That's why I say, if we don't start to think, everyone is somewhat racist, because we are educated through that system,
Yep.
and that system has been there for, say, 500 years or so, right? So if we realize that we are brainwashed through that system, then we have to move to next step. How shall we identify those? Through words, through actions, through books, through whatever, right? So what I try to do is, well, first I had this kind of a general understanding, awareness, but then I thought, as a folklorist, perhaps we have some advantages. That is, study everyday life. That is,
Oh no.
starting with those. Let people understand that, what we say as a joke, funny thing, could not be that funny, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny in context. As some people say, jokes told by insiders, that's one thing, but jokes told by outsiders, that's another thing, right? So understanding those contexts without using this in wherever you feel comfortable, rather than the listeners. So where were we? We're talking
totally
about
fine. You were talking about how I can ask you the question again, and then I can kind of tell you where I think we lost
yeah,
you.
I think we're trying to say, how can we move from first step to be aware of, we are
awareness of
all
racism.
we
and,
are
and
all
how it's in front
somehow
of us.
racist,
Yeah.
right? And the next step is just identify what we can do from our own perspective or experience.
Yeah.
For example, I would say historians would take a different approach. Folklorists, I think folklorists has advantages, because we are dealing with the stories, and stories are particularly influential to children. Okay,
Yeah.
because I think to decolonize, to debunk the unfair, unjust system, we should start from children. And so stories are directly influential to children's education. So that's a good approach. That's why in the past few years I've been looking at the different tales, and to see how they are translated, how they are illustrated, and how they are promoted and received by the children, different generations. So that's how I think folklorists can do. I know, as I quoted some other folklorists, they also point out that we need to be aware of that. But I haven't seen a lot of us folklorists in general take concrete actions by debunking a translation, a tale, or a film, and so on and so forth. We, I know there are people doing, but not enough. What I mean is not enough. We should do more.
Speaking of that, I just dropped a link in the chat to your latest book, Translating, Interpreting, and Decolonizing Chinese Fairy Tales, because it's
you beat me to it.
I'm sorry. I know I'm usually in the other seat, so I'm slightly fast.
Yeah.
But no, I mean that's. I have really appreciated the way that you've talked about this in terms of folkloric identity. Could you expand a little bit more about that concept and how that might kind of relates to not just the skills that folklorists have in the conversation around systemic racism and the material impacts of that, but also just conceptually, like how the field is organized?
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, after 40 years in folklore, I think folkloric identity is what I finally realized is my real goal in studying folklore. That is, first of all, folklore is about identity, right? We practice folklore through speech, action, food, ways, everything, in order to construct, reconstruct, maintain our personal group identities, right? So with that, when we talk about identity, as we learn the term, the concept, although the term is relatively new, right, since 1950s or so, we were told, okay, let's understand identity, of course, beyond the psychological part, racial identity, ethnic identity, or in broad sense, cultural identity. So what I find problematic eventually, after I used those terms for many years, and I realized, look, those who talk about debunking or subverting racial boundaries, they keep using racial concept. That is, in a way, reinforcing the current existing system. Rather than break boundaries, talk to someone else of the same, with the same goal, and let's share something common. So with that, I find, for example, Asians tend to talk about the problems within Asians. Latinos tend to talk about within themselves. African Americans or any minority groups, by all means, minority group, they tend to talk about those racist, unjust system within their group. And that's because we are trapped in this concept of race. Yeah. We are labeled with race, and then we somehow take it and keep saying, oh, you are not my race, so I can't talk to you about this, and so on. So, and then that's very much at the so-called intellectual academic world. Then if we look at the real folk life, human life, over the human history, we realized the very species of human being is a mixture of one category, people, human, right? And that mixture created so-called the diversity of languages, cultures, and so on. Without the mixture, we won't have human diversity. So with that, and one very crucial turning point to me is the scientific genomic study about genes, about the so-called blood, because earlier racist concepts is that blood is the reason for us to have different race and shown through physical features. So it's the genes, it's the blood, okay? But the genomic study, the Human Genome Project, proved that our physical differences is not determined by genes.
Yeah.
Now, if we don't accept it, then how will we accept it that the Earth moves around the sun, not the other way, right? Because we trust the science. If we trust science about the relationship between sun and moon, why shouldn't we trust the science about blood type, gene, and human features, right? So in that sense, it's clear that race is a social construct, which is well said by many people. But how can we bring that concept in real reaction? So now let's look at the everyday life. Any people, let's say Americans, it's the most recent example. 300 years ago, there was no Americans, right?
Right.
And so the American is a mixture of people from parts of the world. And then if you look at the Chinese or others, they are also the mixture of people from different places, even Africa and Europe and everywhere. So that's human history. Then another everyday life folklore is that we look at everyone's own life. For example, your roommates, your friends, your partners, whoever, how you become friends, how you become a group of interests, for like playing games, all right, playing football or play. How you become friends, a group, because you share the same interest, not because you share the same color of skin or the whatever religion, right? So people can cross the boundary of religion through marriage, cross the boundary of skin color through playing games, and so on and so forth. Therefore, what is the thing that brings people together? It is the folklore. That is the shared interest, shared everyday life. So if we talk about those, then we can get rid of the burden of a racial identity, ethnic identity, or in the vague cultural identity, right? So it's really the shared folklore that brings folkloric identity, which brings the most direct meaning to our individual life, everyday life, so that we can live a meaningful life by holding a group, a group with friends that you share with your heart and so on. So that's why I think a folkloric identity touches the core of folklore practice rather than emphasizing racial identity. I know it's conceptually accepted by a lot of people, but some people challenge this is not practical. Yes, it is not practical because we are used to think about the groups by using the concept or label of race or ethnicity rather than by shared folklore. So I hope eventually people realize even their own family is made up of people of different races.
Yeah.
Right? So then why they keep talking about the importance of race? Right? So it's really the shared folklore, which is literally everyday life, foodways, language, jokes, and interests of life. So that's where I find folkloric identity is the thing.
I appreciate that explanation. That was really helpful, and I think, folkloric identity might be a way to. It's one way to kind of balk at the categorizations the racist categorizations that have shaped the way that we interact with people, or at least it helps poke holes and kind of get at kind of what you were talking about in your answer to the first question of that ideological imposition on translation, for example. It's like we're primed to have a racist ideology or maybe a white supremacist ideology, and then that gets unconsciously layered onto all these things. But if we start thinking in terms of how we share interests as opposed to our differences around that are filtered through that ideological lens, maybe that opens up a little bit of more consciousness about the ways that
Right.
racist paradigms create problems in our lives.
Right. Well, if we try to use a folkloristic terms, for example, genre,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
the whole concept of different genres, proverbs, myth, and so on, those are analytical categories, as Dan Ben-Amos argued, that's only for certain ideological or academic approach rather than the reality. Because in reality, nobody says, okay, I'm going to tell a joke. Okay, I'm going to tell a myth. Now I'm going to say a proverb. So, or I'm going to tell you a history rather than story versus history. So as Dan Ben-Amos tried to say after his African experience, that local people's speech, storytelling is a mixture of everything. History is story is politics is jokes, and everything.
Yeah.
That's how folklore works. It's not something you can analyze in a chemical lab. This is what element. That's so. I think folklore is somehow first led to that scientific approach by analyzing a word, a proverb, without putting them back into real life. And so folkloric identity, I think, is to emphasize, okay, look at the everyday life. Don't just study the text of a proverb, the text of a myth, but put them back into everyday life. They are mixed in everyday speech, everyday action. So that's the idea.
Look at the experience of that genre in the context that it emerges. Don't look at just the thing on its own. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Juwen, those are the ends of our big questions, but we do have some funsy questions for you that I really want to know the answers
all right.
to.
Okay.
They'll be a little more light and just some fun things that we learned about you during the sleuthing session.
All right.
First, which is the superior model of flute, ceramic or bamboo?
Superior.
Do you have a preference? Which is better? Ceramic or bamboo?
The ceramic pottery is known to have about 6,000 or 7,000 year history in China, but the bamboo could be longer. However, the older ones must be decayed. What we found excavated is the red-headed crane bones, which is proved to be 9,000 years. 9,000 years.
Okay, so the best flute is bone. It's not ceramic or bamboo.
That's the survive. Ceramic survive. Well, now we call ceramic early pottery. Right? Pottery also existed a long time.
Yes.
Well, personally, it happens that I make both, and I played both, so it's hard to say which is the superior. But I do have a sense of what sounds might be good for what instrument, or what instrument is good for what sounds. So, for example, a little lonely, sad songs, I would use the pottery clay vessel flute.
Yeah.
But more pleasant songs, I would use the bamboo flute. So,
do you think that's because okay, I'm gonna make a weird leap. Is that because do you think the bamboo was a living plant, and so there's some kind of life or liveliness that you can imbue in the musical production of it, and then the ceramic is more stable? Maybe I'm putting too.
Actually, I haven't thought of that much, but I'm
pretty sure only Daisy has thought of that, Juwen. Don't worry.
That's good.
Never mind. It's making me think.
Well, that gives me a hint. Later, I'll think about the livelihood of a bamboo versus a clay.
Yeah.
But I think more of as I wrote about that the philosophical or ethical part of that, because the clay or ceramic is from an earth. Earth is considered the center of the Chinese cosmological view.
Okay.
Right. And the clay vessel flute is the only instrument, existing instruments made of a clay. Other instruments are made of different materials. So they represent different ethics. That's how I view them.
Interesting. I see you're okay. That I get that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like we are on the same wavelength. And Dom can say what he wants about my dream brain. I think I don't know. I think there's something there. Okay, I have another question for you.
Okay.
What is a folk narrative broadly defined? Any type, a folk narrative in your study that you wish more people knew about?
Well, I thought about start with the concept of a genre. In Chinese case, for example, they somehow adopted the Western concept of categorization of a genre. And now they realize there's one big problem. Although there are great commonality in terms of myth, riddles, proverbs, or tales, but there's a particular genre or style of a speech, a folk narrative, let's say. It's called one way to translate two parts riddles or two parts of proverb.
Okay.
That is it's not really riddle, but it has a philosophical proverbial elements sense. So people say the first part, and then the second part is hidden. Usually they don't have to say the second part. So assuming the listener would understand the second part. Okay. So that particular genre, or again, use this concept of genre, is not equivalent to English or Western European narratives. That I wish people can understand better. It shows different linguistic style because of the rhythm, the rhyme, and so on. So, because other than that, Chinese and like many other languages have very much a similar genres. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
do you have an example of one that would make like sense of this two-part kind of?
Okay. For example, if I say, Daisy, what are you doing? Are you trying to break the pot? Are you trying to break a clay pot?
Okay.
Okay, clay pot.
Yeah.
So that's the first part.
The first part. Okay.
Then, assuming if you are from the same cultural background, then you know the next line. Okay, I'm going to ask the question to the very core, to the bottom of the issue. So because
I see.
I want to ask all the questions.
Know. Yeah, because you want to.
Right, I want to know everything.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So because in Chinese linguistic sense, to break the pottery has the same homophone to asking questions.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So that makes. I see. That's fun.
Yeah,
it's
cool. It's not a simple pun. Okay,
right.
Pun is common, right? So that's one example. People don't have to say the second part because that is a way, the charm of assuming face-to-face interaction, bring people together. We have same cultural background and so on and so forth. So that's just an example. Yeah.
That's cool. That's a
you are good at translation.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. That's great. What is the first thing that you do when you arrive back in Oregon after a trip to Hong Kong?
Oh my gosh. Actually, I've been contemplating this trip. I visited China for 6 weeks after 6 years gap. You know, this is like a pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Yeah.
I had a lot of imaginations. The general change, individual change, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And actually, this time I stopped by Taipei first, and then went to Canton, Guangzhou, and then went to Macau, and
Oh,
to
okay.
six other cities in China, from south to middle
Wow.
to north, Beijing. And I met dozens of old friends, folklorists. Lots of things surprised me. Some might be there, but I didn't pay great attention. This time I purposely tried to bring so-called a new pair of glasses to see
Yeah.
China, to see people. Um, one superficial yet impressive change is the sound pollution and the air pollution. Because right now, from every part of China, big city or small city, you will see their buses, taxis, cars, motorcycles are nearly all electric.
Oh, so that probably is so much more quiet. I didn't think about
Which
that
means,
part of it. But
yes,
yeah.
in the past, I stayed
Yeah.
in one hotel every time in Beijing. Even I close the window, I hear the noise. But now I open the window, I can't hear much because imagine everything is so quiet.
Yeah.
And now obviously the air is cleaner.
Yeah.
So that's one superficial yet important change to me. Yeah.
That's cool. When you come back to Oregon, what is the first thing that you like to do? Like when you come home, or do you feel like you're home? Like, how do you feel? How do you think about that? Like when you just come back? Yeah.
Well, literally, I went to the community garden that I rented because prior to my
Aw.
my trip, in Oregon, I learned to grow vegetables. I failed a few times because I planted too early. When it was a warm, sunny in April, I
It
plant
tricks
seeds
you.
or the seedling.
Yeah.
And
It
then
tricks you.
so yeah, and so this time, in very beginning of April, May, I put some seeds in, and now 6 weeks later they just come out.
That's cool.
So it turned out to be good.
Aw.
So I enjoy the quietness
Good
here
answer.
in Salem, Oregon. So
Yeah. Go check
yeah,
on the garden. I love
that's
that.
something I'm used to now,
Yeah.
to be quiet.
Yes, I love that. Oh, I think Dom, do you want to ask this last one?
Okay, are you there? You're
Oh, yeah.
frozen.
I think it'd be fun. Oh,
Oh, wait, say again?
are we back?
Okay.
Okay.
We're back.
Okay, we're
cool.
back. Yes.
Oh yeah, I can ask this. I can ask this last one. Absolutely. Juwen, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you when you took one of your faculty student research trips to China?
What is it? What thing?
Like the funniest thing that ever happened to
funny
you.
Yeah,
thing.
like something funny.
Okay. Yeah, I fortunately had 2 times taking students to China and traveled to many cities, try to taste something different, something new every day, or if not every meal. I think the funny thing is about foodways. For me personally, I think a way to understand whether a person is tolerant enough is
Yeah.
is to see whether that person is tolerant to different food, and then relate to different cultures.
Yeah.
So, for example, one time well, usually I play this trick. I order things without telling them what that is.
Good.
So one
Yes.
time there was the black bone chicken. Literally, the bone is black. Okay, that's
okay.
just type of chicken, real.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
obviously, when they are cooked, the bone is still black, dark.
Yeah.
So at first they were scared. What is that? I say, well, why don't you just taste it and see how different it is from other meat?
Yeah.
And at that time, I think of the 5 of them, one just held back, not wanting to try, until the
gosh.
four tried and said, nothing special, tastes like a chicken. And then
Yeah.
And then the fifth person tried. Then I told them this is a black bone chicken. So
You're like, it's
and then
basically just chicken.
they all
Yeah.
took
That's
pictures,
really funny.
started to talk about their own experience about whole session of telling personal stories about tasting different foods and so on. That's maybe not the funniest thing, but one of those. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
That's pretty good.
That's
It's
pretty
a
good.
chicken. It's a chicken in dark mode.
Yeah.
Wow,
in
this
dark
looks
mode.
cool.
This
bone,
chicken looks
dark
so
bone.
yeah, the bone looks so cool.
Yeah.
Dark mode
Yeah.
chicken.
Oh,
so silly.
I'm putting this in the chat.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Juwen, that is the end of our formal questions, but we have one final thing to do with you, which is play a parlor game type of thing. So I'm gonna take a moment to cue this up while Dom, you can explain to Juwen what a tier list is.
Ooh, okay. So Juwen, okay, we're gonna play a game with you. Have you ever made a tier list before?
Not officially.
Not officially. Okay, so you may be familiar. Chat, if you're not familiar, a tier list originally come from fighting games, from video games as a way to rank character choice. But on the internet and on Twitch in particular, people love to do these to rank everyday life. And I know you've mentioned everyday life several times. So this is the internet's vernacular everyday life ranking system on a scale from S to D, S being a grade above 100%, and D, barely passing, barely not failing.
Yeah.
So we scoured over. If you haven't clicked watch stream yet, Daisy has screen shared your tier list, and we found a through line in a bunch of your articles.
This was a big brain move on Dom's part to figure out this.
I think I picked a good one. We want something that you would be the best folklorist at ranking. So I know because you've talked about fifth generation cinema. You've talked about filmic folklore, and our idea for tonight is we picked 11-ish Zhang Yimou movies. Can we go through these and can you rank them with us?
Okay. All right. I may not have seen all of them. 11.
But I think you've seen more like 10 and a half. But so you can go on vibes if you can leave one off.
Yeah.
Oh, we're back.
This is your tier list. It's based on your opinion only. It is not. Yeah, you get to decide what the criteria of evaluation is, and if you've not seen it before, we can pass.
We can skip. Yeah.
If you've not seen it before, but you have a feeling about it, it can still go on here too.
Okay.
If that works.
Great.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
Start from the start with red sorghum.
Yes. I would say that is between S and A.
Okay.
So like top of A, bottom of S. We'll let the other ones fill in.
A plus.
It's an A plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Any reason in
Do you
particular?
have do you have any reason in particular why this immediately gets an A plus?
Well, okay. So I should just make it clear. My judgment is very folkloristic or folkloric.
Okay, that's good. Good.
Not necessarily artistic or cinematic or political.
I love that.
This will be good. This will be a good metric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this red sorghum has a lot of folkloric elements about food ways, marriage, dress, and life style, and so that's why I think it's pretty good.
Cool. Dom, why don't you go through these?
Okay. Next up is To Live.
Oh, well, To Live, I think is definitely S.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And what can you say briefly about To Live?
Again, the filmic folklore is a more meaningful and important. I would say every film, even feature films, sci-fi would have some folkloric element, right? But this has a more realistic, direct connection to everyday people. In the past, 3, 4 generations, even my own generation would remember all those things in the past, and they relate to so many things, weddings, funerals, food. So I think this is a great folkloric film.
Excellent.
That's a yeah, I agree based on your wonderful description of this film. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Our next one we picked is Judo.
I would say this is also A.
Okay.
Now, is this A?
Yeah.
Is this A under Red Sorghum, or is it A above Red Sorghum?
Well, maybe a little under, or
Okay, perfect.
just about same. Because this has a very regional connection in terms of lifestyle, and the specific type of marriage,
Okay.
and the funerals, and then it talks about well, in modern sense, is how we treat the disabled people. That. So overall, I think this is also a very good folkloric film.
That's
gives-
the first of his 3 Oscar-nominated movies, I believe.
Oh, was it?
I think. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The first nominated. Yeah.
I might guess. I don't remember whether I knew this or not. Maybe I knew, but I think this has a greater political implication than the other 2, so that this is awarded outside China.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Next up is Raise the Red Lantern.
Oh, this is very much similar to the Judo. It's a very regional story about concubinage, the old system when a rich man can afford more wives. And also reflect some social changes. I think in terms of folkloric aspect, this is like between A and B.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll put it a B+ for right now.
Yeah,
B+
I would
for
say.
now,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
The next one we're looking at is Not One Less.
Oh, this is very modern about education in rural areas. This is a funny thing because the name, the film was made also along the time when George Bush was the president, talking about in America, American education, children's education. Not one less, not one left
sure.
behind.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
yes.
No
Not
Child
one left
behind.
behind.
Yeah.
So this film actually is about not one left behind, because
yes.
one kid in the rural area was not able to afford to go to school, and so the teacher or even the temporary teacher try hard to bring him back to classroom for education. So it's good, emotional, but in terms of folkloric sense, I would put it B or B-.
Okay. It can be at the end of B, or we could make it C+.
End of B, yeah.
End of B, yes.
Okay.
End of B.
Yeah, because as a folklorist, we care about how much folklore it carries or spreads.
So for these next couple of movies, here's my connection with the subject matter. I used to be a waiter at a Greek restaurant that was next to a video store. So I'd get off my shift and I would rent a movie like every weekend. And the next couple are movies that I watched the heck out of when I worked next to a video store. So first up is Hero.
Hero is historical, politically important, but folkloristically, I would put it in B,
Okay.
or B minus.
Yeah.
Maybe above, not one less,
Uh,
or below.
well, maybe after not one less.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Beautiful movie, not
Yeah.
your metric you're selecting.
Yeah.
Well, again, we're talking about
Yes.
how much folklore
Yeah,
it
right.
it represents
Yeah.
or creates through
Creates,
film.
yeah.
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 Playing it fast and loose with that. Next up is House of Flying Daggers.
Oh, well, it's exciting, but folkloristically speaking, I would put it in C.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Okay. That movie
Yeah.
blew my mind when I was like 17. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Okay.
Okay, we're getting kind of to this controversial period. Next up is The
Okay.
Flowers of War
Flowers of War. Okay.
with Christian
Um,
Bale.
Christian
Yeah,
Bale's in this? Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I think again from folklore perspective, I would say it's B category.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's behind not one less.
Gotcha.
In front of Hero, behind Not One Less. Okay.
Behind, I would put it behind.
Yeah. Okay. I love to see a normal distribution start to happen on a tier list. Look at that curve. It looks very even. Just saying. Okay. Next up, the infamous. I'm leading the witness here.
Yeah,
Matt Damon, Pedro Pascal, The Great Wall.
The Great Wall.
It's a pretty bad movie. But maybe not by folklore standard.
Actually, I don't think I've seen this.
This is
probably
the
a
one
reason.
where the Romans make it to the Great Wall of China and realize they put it up to keep like monsters out.
Oh yeah, I think I know about it. Yeah, I would put it in C, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie's a lot. And
Yeah,
again,
it-
it's like this beautiful action sequences, but there's
Right.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got two
Uh,
more.
It's crazy seeing the cast of this movie now, and I'm like, well, Pedro Pascal would have been first billed if they made this movie now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a money maker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then okay, two more left. This is the last like real movie, but we got Shadow from a couple years ago.
Oh, Shadow. It's a good story, a good film, but I don't think it should be higher than B in terms of folklore.
Okay.
Like the bottom of B.
Bottom B, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Look at that perfectly symmetrical curve. And the last one we got, it's not a movie,
So out of
Okay.
pocket.
but I think it counts, Daisy.
It does count based on this particular tier
Because
list, yes.
he is credited as a director on this. It's on his resume. The 2008 Beijing Summer Olympic opening ceremonies.
Opening ceremony.
He is credited as the
As
director
the
of it.
director of this.
Yes,
Yes.
he is the director. I would put it in D.
Indeed. I love
Look
that.
at that! Look at that perfect curve! Look at that perfect
Yes.
curve you built.
Wow.
Because they throw in some traditional element, but those elements are even not at the filmic folklore level. So
That's
Yeah.
fair. Yeah. Yeah.
Just the ideology level,
It's
yeah.
the
yes,
ideology
exactly.
only level.
Exactly, or our artistic level, or
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
for sound effect, for visual effect, and
Yeah.
so on. Cinematic level. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, so yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
This is awesome.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of something to like wrap
This
it up
is
from
so-
to
wait,
live
this
to
is
the
so
Beijing
perf-
Olympics. Like how much folklore
This
does
is
your
such
movie?
a
Like
such a perfect. I love
Yeah.
it when this happens when we do a tier list. Such a
Yeah.
perfect curve. Look at that.
Yeah.
Perfectly symmetrical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Well,
not
I
always
would
like
ju-
that. Yeah.
I do think those who have not seen the top one to live should watch it.
Yeah.
It's a historically true and folkloristically true to a great extent. So that's a really
Wow.
good movie.
That's
by
high
all-
we have,
praise.
like-
That's high praise
Can-
from a scholar
Can we
such
do
as
like a
yourself.
thing on Discord?
Yeah.
Daisy.
Like a
Can we have
watch
like a
party?
to live watch party?
Oh, in 2 hours, it's crossed, 3 generations, and the social
Wow.
change, the customs, from
Oh.
weddings to funerals to everything.
I would
It's
love
very
to have a watch party of
compact,
this.
very compacted version of Chinese folklore.
I would love to have.
It-
we may have a watch party on our Discord
To live
watch this
won
movie.
the Grand Prix, the prize of the ecumenical jury, and best actor at
Wow.
the 1994 Cannes Film Festival. So it won 3
Yeah.
awards at Cannes at once.
Wow,
Hmm.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we should watch this movie. This is great. I would love to
Dang.
watch this on Discord. Maybe I'll find try to
Yeah.
find a link for it somewhere, and we can stream it. That would be really fun.
That would be great. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
Well,
chat.
this is
If
the
you're watching,
official
we're
tier
having a
list.
we're having
Yeah.
a to live party.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Great.
I'll drop the Discord link. Juwen, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Not only, being exposed to Dynasty Warriors and that sort of expanded universe, but also for just, answering all of our questions and just being the awesome folklorist that you are. And we, greatly admire you and are so happy that you could shared some time with us today on Folkwise. So thank you for being here. This was awesome.
Thank you, Juwen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I know we've been planning this for 2 years.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Yeah.
and then
you're
thank
playing
you
this
for
together.
your team behind the screen. So
Yeah, sleuths.
Yep.
Yes.
Thanks, sleuths.
Yeah, thanks, sleuths.
and
yeah.
Louders in the chat for Juwen.
yeah.
Yes.
Sleuths
Yes.
in the chat for sleuths.
Best wishes to Folkwise.
Aw, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Juwen. Oh,
Okay.
people are cheering for you in the chat with ladders, which is like our kind of applause, basically. But yeah, this is your.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.
Have a special emotional quotes have had meaning on many levels. Making quotes helped me to get a sense of my own space, sense of finding my way, sense of really working my way out of my labyrinth.